Once upon a time, Benjamin Netanyahu, real surname Mileikowsky, was described as one of the most successful politicians in the world. It was really hard going up against him. He was largely successful in doing his thing with laser focus, blocking a peaceful solution for the Palestinians on a global stage, slowly poisoning and killing off the inhabitants of what his own predecessors called one of the world's largest concentration camps, Gaza, and shipping in European colonists from all over Europe and the USA into illegal colonial settlements to reduce the Palestinian population's percentage in their own ancestral homeland, mimicking other states built on ethnic cleansing and genocide. A man of Polish-Russian descent, being the leader of the last remaining European colony in the Middle East, Israel, for almost 20 years, he was so confident he would brag about being able to control the US political landscape and being untouchable. But unfortunately for him, unfortunately for the rest of the world, it got to his head, and he's had a very public meltdown in the last few months. So here are 5 things to thank Benjamin Netanyahu for. Number 1, you've helped resurrect the Palestinian cause in our hearts. On October the 6th, the whole world had forsaken Gaza. Everyone was busy with their own issues, and even the world's foremost academic chronicler of Gaza, Dr. Norman Finkelstein, remarked once, whilst holding back tears in an interview, that he had turned his back on Gaza too. But now, because of the genocidal adventures and the brazen dehumanization spouted by Netanyahu and his colleagues, some of whom were even convicted for supporting terrorism, you can't make this stuff up, everyone is talking about Gaza and Palestine. One of the requirements of the ethnic cleansing of Palestine to make room for the European colonial settlers was that people will forget the Nakba, the genocidal massacring and displacement of the ancient inhabitants of Palestine. Well, Benjamin, look at what you've done. Now, I'm no Google expert, but I do know graphs, and that's one big peak. You've caused more and more people worldwide to search for the Nakba and learn about it. That's not all. People are also searching for Palestine, Zionism, apartheid. Thank you. Policymakers in capitals all over the world are also now talking about a Palestinian state being on the table, thanks to Benjamin Netanyahu. Not only that, but the topic of completely dissolving the apartheid system is being discussed more and more seriously, just like the last few apartheid ethno-states were dissolved and replaced with non-ethno-nationalist democratic societies, one person, one vote, regardless of claimed ethnicity. Big trouble for racists and Zionists. Netanyahu has accidentally done more for this to come about than anyone before him. Number 2, his barbarity is making his allies even step away from him and Israeli apartheid altogether. Serious analysts are saying we're seeing the end of so-called Israel as we know it, all because he put his ego and his position before his country. When Operation Al-Aqsa flood happened, Netanyahu could have gone to the UN and said, hey look, these guys breached the camp and attacked about 30 of our military bases and killed a bunch of people. That's an act of war. Are you with me? And the international community probably would have gotten its arm twisted by the US and shown some sympathy to Israel. But instead, Netanyahu went on a personal rampage because of his bruised ego. And now he has 200 of his own fighters dead, 2,000 plus permanently injured, and his own people hate him even more. The families of the hostages that he's consistently refused to get released in exchanges are constantly hounding him, because he knows that once the war is over, he's back on trial for fraud, and probably worse now. You are already on trial at The Hague for genocide, remember Ben? He's also biting the hand that feeds him. He absolutely humiliated Joe Biden recently, whom he got given the catchy nickname Genocide Joe. Netanyahu said there's going to be no Palestinian state anymore. And Joe Biden was like, no, that's not what he meant. We're talking to him. He didn't really mean that. And Netanyahu literally then went on Twitter saying, yeah, that is what I mean. What are you going to do about it? And that's linked to the third thing that we need to be thankful about. He's helping us clean up our political and ruling classes all over the world. Genocide Joe's approval ratings are at an all-time low, which some commentators are saying is historic for candidates facing an election at this time. Netanyahu's nasty friends everywhere are slowly being sidelined and gotten rid of. You got Suella Braverman fired, Rishi Sunak's getting blasted in Parliament, being accused of hiding Foreign Office reports about Israeli war crimes.
Is it now not the time for the Prime Minister to admit that he has the blood of thousands of innocent people on his hands?
Sheesh. There have even been record-breaking demonstrations in almost every capital in the world against Netanyahu. And in their chants, their slogans and their placards, protesters are rounding up all the corrupt politicians in their own political classes too that have been doing the bidding of the apartheid colony instead of looking out for their own people's interests. The cracks in even the international system are being shown up for repair as people are calling for serious reforms of the UN due to all the might is right veto power used to protect Netanyahu and his genocidal pals over the decades. is also helping us clean up the media. The liberation of Palestine has gone from being completely ignored and shadow banned online to becoming too loud to ignore. People are taking the absolute mick out of the legacy media that used to be called mainstream, and many of the usual mouthpieces for rent have lost their credibility completely, being replaced with more just voices and people with journalistic integrity in new and more credible publications and mediums. The sycophants who bent over backwards for Netanyahu and have been embarrassingly grovelling to interview him again have completely lost credibility among experts that used to give their shows a few ounces of credibility.
Benjamin Netanyahu, despite repeated requests from this programme to do another interview, nothing. I would just like to once again, if you could just pass on that request, and I think you should.
I promise to pass on the request, sir.
Thank you.
I counted about half a dozen people in the last day or so that publicly refused to go on Piers Morgan's programme, for example, this week. And he's having a meltdown about that too. We couldn't have done this without you, Benjamin. And this is linked to the fourth thing we should be grateful for. It's like he's given us a magic lens through which we can now see all over the world and at home who all the genocidal white supremacists are and their supporters. They were previously hidden from us, blending in with normal folks going about their day, but thanks to Netanyahu's meltdown, they're coming out of the woodwork. Foreign fighters motivated by this ethno-nationalist ideology have emerged from all over the world in one place, taking pictures, filming themselves, making TikTok videos of them committing war crimes and expressing their sexual perversions in ethnically cleansed women and children's bedrooms, like a magnet that's attracted all these weirdos from all over the world to come together to meet their doom. And those that did make it back and are trying to reintegrate into our societies have been living a miserable existence in hiding, running from people with cameras holding them to account. And finally, in his incessant refusal for ceasefire after ceasefire, he has caused a different type of ceasefire. A ceasefire between Muslims. Muslims that were at each other's throats, arguing about silly little things, have put aside their differences and come together on shared platforms to stand with their Palestinian brothers and sisters against the last remaining European colony in the Middle East. What are we going to do with this unity and awakening now? The sky is the limit. Once you are united, there is nothing this ummah cannot do. Thank you, Benjamin. Not only that, but events like these do show us who is pro-justice from all backgrounds, religions, creeds and philosophies. Those non-Muslims who have sacrificed their own comfort and even their careers to speak out against the genocide have shown their moral integrity. And also those hypocrites who claim to be Muslim, who have sided with the oppressor against the oppressed, have also been exposed for us to all beware of going forward. As Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah wrote famously once, it is the sunnah of Allah, like a law of the universe, that a just people are given prosperity, even if they are disbelievers, and an unjust people are bound to fail, even if they are believers. We may be thanking Netanyahu, but he's not really the one who deserves the credit, only the blame. It's the people of Gaza who have our undying support and our thanks. For those 2 million heroes have woken up 2 billion Muslims and counting, with more and more people waking up and coming to the deen of Allah because of them. These are just a few reminders of our creed that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not decree anything except that there is more maslahah than mafsada. There's more benefit than harm in it. Now, I mentioned that time is up for the apartheid colony known as Israel, but does that mean genocide against Jewish people? Nothing could be further from the truth. And this video explains why this propaganda claim is totally false. Check it out.